I'll take it.
Are you sure you're not interested? I was like, don't ask me again.
And it's a bad hair day too.
So she's like, scream for me, and then it's just dead silence.
It was a good risk to take, and it was great.
Boom! I'm gonna try and give you a friend, and then I was like,
I wish you had like a granny mask.
That would be so cool, or like a ghost uniform.
And everybody was like totally freaked out.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jordan. Hello.
Hello, Mark.
Don't need it, just to have a holiday. Not gonna rain on my parade. Holding out for different kind of yesterday. Not gonna rain on my parade.
Today is a multi-instrumentalist. She has toured and performed with many notable music acts. She has her own project with a new single coming out very soon. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts virtual studio, Total Brutal.
Am I here now?
Hi. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How about you, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I really appreciate this.
I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so as we were talking pre-show, just to kind of start with like one of the most current things, you were at the Grammys.
Yes, I was. It was a wonderful experience.
And can you kind of let the viewers know, like, how did that come to be, and what was your role? What were you doing there?
Yes, I was the tiny little light in the corner to the left of stage, way past Taylor Swift. It was my old bandmate Jack from Fun put the performance together, and I haven't talked to him in a while, but he called a couple, like a week ago or so, and asked if I wanted to be a part of it, and it would just be so stupid to say no. It was so much fun.
Awesome. So what you were playing with the performance?
Yes, it was Jack and then her other producer Erin playing guitar for her, and then on side stage was me. I was playing acoustic and keys, and then my our friend James playing drums.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Wow, I feel like it was like, I don't know, feels like a dream.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And the way they did the Grammys this year by having the stage outside and people socially distanced and all that, so that was really interesting to see how they made it work. And so you got to be a part of something fairly historic, because I don't know if we'll see something like that again.
I know. I think it was really interesting to be a part of it this year and kind of see how everything works. There was like this big, like, I don't know, it seems like it was such a fun, big, exciting thing, which it was, but it was also so casual at the same time. You know what I mean? Because everybody was staying apart for COVID. So I was just kind of sitting backstage reading up until the time of performing and like trying to pinch myself, like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. So.
Wow. And so did you get a chance to talk to Taylor at all?
We had a rehearsal. She's wonderful. So nice. But yeah, it was limited. Just everybody felt, it's like scary to be kind of in a group right now. We were all very safe and stayed apart and got tested and stuff. But yeah, we just, maintained distance. But she's great. She's so nice.
Yeah. I mean, she's one of those people that then I'd be self-admittedly, I'm not like I don't know a lot about Taylor Swift. I just know who she is. I know she's hugely popular, but the things I have seen about her have been nothing but positive in terms of how she carries herself and how I can't imagine being on that level and what you have to deal with on a daily basis.
I can't either. It seems exhausting, but her whole team, everybody's just so warm and welcoming. So I think that's how people get successful is you're just kind to other people,
I totally agree with that. I think the way that you treat people, doesn't matter what level you're at in anything that you do in life, really reflects on you. And also that energy starts coming back to you when you're doing things the right way.
Definitely, 100%.
Awesome. And as we were also kind of talking, well, I want to talk about the name Total Brutal for your project, because like if you put that into a search, they'll get like all this death metal stuff comes up, these heavy things. So what's the origin behind the name?
Well, I'm glad that you said that. I love how aggressive and I don't know, it's just so aggressive. And then you like find me and I'm just like this smiling blonde girl with a little tiny puppy or something. But it's just honestly, it was just bouncing ideas. My husband Ryan and I would just like kind of keep a list of things that sound interesting, and then when I went to go form this project, I kind of looked back through the list and was like, try this, try that, try this. But this one I loved. I think it's so cool.
It is, and I can tell you too, because I don't think I mentioned this in our email conversations, that I came across you through like a tour tip video where you're giving some tips about being on the road and
Digital tour bus.
yep, those
Cool.
guys. Yeah, and so I'm like, but when I saw that, kind of like what you just described, when I saw the name, like Total Brew, that must be some sort of metal thing. So let me kind of see what they're talking about. And I was like, oh, well, this is different. But I like all kinds of music and I've interviewed all kinds of guests. But yeah, it just kind of threw me for a second.
Are you a metalhead? Do you like metal?
Yeah, I that's kind of my foundation. And the first band I ever saw was Kiss way back when. And I play guitar, and then I started playing bass and drums and all that. Really when I started playing guitar is when I got into the blues and got into lots of different genres of music. But I grew up in a household where I heard Elvis and the Beatles and Motown and all kinds of different things. So that definitely helped shape my open-mindedness towards really not just music but everything.
So even being a metalhead, you weren't disappointed when you stumbled upon me and saw my bright colors and light-heartedness?
Not at all, because I went and looked at your music videos, and that's what oh, okay, I like this stuff, because it's kind of living up to the name of being Eclectic Arts, that I truly like all kinds of different things. And sometimes even if, like, say 3 years ago I wasn't really into, say, the opera, now I'm, well, before the pandemic I was covering opera, covering the ballet and all those kind of things. So I really am always just really curious and fascinated about anything artistic. And then I just kind of feed off of it. It's like I want to learn more about it. So no, I was not disappointed at all when I saw you. And again, and you definitely sealed the deal when I heard your music. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. So let me figure out a way to reach out to her. And here we are virtually.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I know.
And so let's kind of start current and then maybe work our way back. So I know you had mentioned to me that you have a new single coming out soon. And so what can you leak or tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's coming out April 9th. It's called Had a Feelin'. It's a little different than the stuff that I've been doing, but I still feel like I'm trying to find my footing, and like, I don't know, every song I write's a little different. I had a vision for this one, and it didn't quite go the way that I expected, but it turned out interesting. So it's like a little more organic. I don't know. I think it still sounds like me in the project, so I'm interested to hear what everybody has to say about it. But April 9th is a big day.
Okay. And what was the time frame when you were writing the song and getting it together?
This was interesting because, well, the whole project started over quarantine, and basically because my job as a touring musician was no more for at least the time being. So I wanted to first I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, because I've never really done this before, being a solo artist. We talked a little bit about I've done a lot of musical things, but there's not a lot about just me or something. And I just wanted to see, we can talk about this later. Anyway, this song I recorded with a friend, John, in I think December. So it's been like a long process of getting it was the first time I recorded outside of my home, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it was interesting to go back and forth with John and be in a real studio to record it. So it's taken a different shape. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. And is he somebody that you've worked with before?
I had never worked with him, but I had worked with people who knew him, and they just love him so much. So and he makes wonderful music. So I was really thrilled to work with him. Probably do it again soon.
Okay. And so it sounds like your previous music's been done there at home with a home studio.
Yeah. Either with production, this kind of thing over Zoom. Talking with other producers and stuff, or I've done a lot of it myself, or my husband also produces. So yeah, it's all been virtual.
Okay, so and maybe you can kind of speak to some of that, just like you mentioned, for pretty much every guest that I interviewed, especially early on back in May, everything just stopped back in March. Didn't matter if you're a musician, a theater actor, a film actor. There was no sets to be on, there was no stages to be on. So when that happened initially for yourself, did you just start putting your energy into this project, or it's like you need some time to kind of process and then kind of get inspired again?
Let me think about that. I think I was actually overseas in Europe when everything shut down with a band called Ex Ambassadors, which was so fun, but we canceled our tour 2.5 weeks early. So I was lucky that I still traveled a ton last year. So I had a job up until March and we did a lot of amazing things. So I came home and I kind of like hit the ground running. Like I was ready to keep going, momentum. And for the first, I would say like 6 months of quarantine, I didn't feel the same anxiety or depression or something that maybe I feel now because I was like just filling my time with this project, and it was really fun. It was really interesting to learn how to do videos, and I hadn't written music in so long, and working with people over Skype and stuff. Yeah, I just hit the ground running. It was really interesting, even though I didn't have technically the job that I was used to having.
Okay, that is interesting that that you use that momentum initially to just keep going. I know a lot of the folks that I talked to, they're kind of, and I was kind of in the same boat. Like, now what? Because it felt really weird to be going like 100 miles an hour and then all of a sudden go zero, just stop.
That's how I feel now. I've definitely like lost momentum. I've learned a lot about myself in the past year, and one of the things is that I need the momentum. I can't, once I stop, I can make myself just read books and lay in bed all day.
Okay, and it's been different for every person. I mean, the process for everyone. You can't tell any one person this is how you should be dealing with things now, because we haven't been in a situation like this. I use the analogy, it's like trying to tell somebody how long they should grieve. It's like, you can't do that. It's different for every person.
It's the same. It's like, I do think you're kind of moving through these stages of grief too. Kind of, you're like, whether it's your job or social life or whatever it is, it's so different for everybody. It's been a hard year for a lot of people. Everybody, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, at least for myself in 2021, it feels like there's a little glimmer of hope of something starting to crack open in the sky that gives us some light of some of some sort.
Yeah, not to be negative, but it's funny because I've talked to a lot of friends, and that is kind of producing anxiety for people to get back to normal now. I feel the same way. Like, oh my gosh, well now I forgot how to do everything, talk to people and stuff.
I can relate to that on one level, because I used to work as a model photographer before I was doing all the media stuff, and so every now and then a model that I used to know would say, "Hey Mark, do you want to do like a socially distanced shoot outside?" This is like back in the summer, and I'd be like, "I don't know, I haven't touched my camera." Like, it was literally dusty, my bag. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, for music.
It took some while to get the rust off, and I kind of did a little bit, but now I can see it right now. It's sitting over there again. It's kind of getting kind of dusty again.
Give it a little blow off, and you get it ready to go.
Exactly. So I understand some of that anxiety about going from what we've been in this kind of weird, not kind of, very weird situation, and then going back to what we were doing on some level for people. Was like, yeah, can I still do this? Am I still going to be on the same level, same skill set? And it's kind of like, well, you just have to kind of take it, one moment at a time, not even one day at a time, and just kind of see where. And then eventually, some things will start coming back to you. I mean, it kind of has to, depending on what you were doing.
100%. And once you get going, I think people will adjust. It's just there's like a lot of fear of the unknown, but it's not unknown. It'll come back, I think.
Yeah, and I've talked with other guests too, even like if we talk about music and performances. I've gotten a couple of press releases about these hybrid shows that are starting to get booked, where there'll actually be a socially distanced show, 50% capacity at a club, a theater, what have you. But then to help make up the other money that's missing, they're also selling virtual tickets, so somebody like me in Seattle can still see the show that's down in Florida. And so it kind of makes sense to kind of take this virtual live stream concept that people were doing for the last year plus, and then folding that into the in-person thing, to kind of figure out a way to get creative and get things rolling again. I think we're going to see quite a bit more of that, at least initially, until we can get back to being like fully in-person kind of things. But I have been fascinated by that. I think the creative side of people, of like during this time, like, so what are you doing to try to make this work? And some of the things have been like, wow, that's really cool. I just never would have thought about something like what people have come up with. So that tells me the juices are still out there flowing.
I know. And don't you feel proud of yourself? You like did this thing. I feel like we're all learning how to do new things. And also, I don't know. I think we should all be proud of ourselves. It's been a weird year.
Yeah, I think if you're doing anything that makes you feel good, and if you learn anything new, doesn't matter what it is, then that's a huge win in my book. Because other people are just doing everything they can just to have basic survival right now. So if you're doing something beyond that, that's a gift.
Yeah.
But so Emily, sounds like you come from a family that has musicians in it. Particularly, I know your dad was a blues guitarist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. He is. My mom like loved music, and my brother doesn't really play much music, but I definitely grew up with it in the house. My dad for sure.
Okay, so is guitar, was that your first instrument that you learned growing up, or how kind of walk me through your background, please?
Sure. I know it's funny because a lot of people ask like what my main instrument is, and I really is just what I'm playing at the moment. I learned piano or I took lessons when I was really young, so that's kind of always been a basic, way to like reference other instruments and stuff. I kind of default to piano, but I stopped playing around, I guess, eighth grade or something, and switched to guitar, and I just fell in love with it, and I really loved learning about it. My dad was such a huge resource for me, so like he didn't play piano so much, but I learned so much from him for guitar. So then I kind of switched to that. But then I don't know, it depends on the band I'm in now, like which muscle I use, I love them both equally.
Okay, is there any instrument that you would love to learn how to play?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you had this in your school, but when we were really young, you get to pick, like rank the top 3 instruments you want to play, and hopefully you get your top one. But so mine was drums, which didn't happen, and then cello, and it didn't happen. And then I got violin, which I played for like 12 years or something. I couldn't play anything anymore on it, though. I tried recently, and it just sounded so bad. But both cello and drums, I think, would be really fun to learn.
Okay, yeah, no, I remember that. We had a form, and I remember I had to bring it home to my family, and you pick the instruments, and yeah, you basically rank things so you can figure out, well, we already have too many drummers, or we have too many cellists, or whatever, but
Exactly.
hey, we can still use a violinist. And so does that mean that you have a school theory-based background then musically?
Yeah, I guess so. I got for violin, I definitely had to read music and stuff. And piano, the lessons that I took definitely helped with theory. I like theory a lot. I teach some guitar lessons now, and I'm lucky that my students like it too. But it's really fun to me. I like understanding things at that level.
Okay, that's awesome, and I'm sure you already know just from being a teacher how much you learn from your students too at the same time.
Definitely, it's so fun to see how exciting it is. Like they get so excited, like learning new things. I'm like that too. I really enjoy the process of learning. So.
I do. There's a real short time when I was teaching guitar lessons quite a few years ago, and I was just amazed of how much I had to dissect my own playing of what I'm doing, because I just don't think about it. But when someone else is asking you something who doesn't have that foundation, I think, yeah, why do I hold the pick that way? And is that the right way, or is that what's
I know.
right?
You're like, a lot of it's just preference, I guess, and experience, like what works for you and hopefully it works for somebody else. You said you were a teacher. I saw one of your other interviews. Were you a teacher, guitar or something else as well?
Oh, so right out of college, I used to work as a public school teacher in a junior high setting. So I taught special education.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Did you enjoy teaching?
To be quite honest, I did for most of that time, not all of that time, which is kind of what prompted me to leave it, unfortunately, depending on how I look back on it. But having said that, I was also involved with many community-based agencies beyond that. So even when I left the public school setting, I did a short stint as an audio engineer at a computer company. But then I went on to work in community-based agencies for 12 plus years, worked with some really difficult populations, a lot of gang-involved youth that I used to work with. And then I worked at a complete opposite of that. I worked at a private college, but I was on a K-12 side. So it was like being here in Seattle, so it was like every Microsoft kid, Google kid,
Wow.
all the family, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of families that aren't used to hearing the word no, that's who I had. So
that does sound challenging.
It was, especially coming from a background where I had, a lot of families and students who had so little, and then here's all these that they want the latest technology. They want to know how come our workshop doesn't have this kind of laptop for their son or daughter. How come you're not doing this? And it's kind of like, hey, it's clearly in the description what your son or daughter is going to be working with when they do our workshop. If you're not happy with it, we can make an exception and they can bring it in, but that means you're taking the financial risk in case something happens to it or someone steals it or something else happens. So yeah, I will always have that empathetic part of me. It's just ingrained in who I am in terms of helping other people. Yeah. Professionally, that my 20 plus years of doing that kind of thing, it'll never change. So It's interesting how it kind of spilled over into this world, because some people have asked me about my interview style, and I said, it really comes from that, because I've had to have difficult conversations with people about very sensitive subjects. I've had to be a chameleon at times and wear different hats, and then I'm this huge music art nut on top of it. So you just kind of throw it all into a blender and you kind of get who I am and what I do.
You get good social skills. You know how to talk to people and, you know, listen.
I hope so. It seems to be working. Most people either had a decent time being interviewed and don't mind coming back or what have you. I haven't had too many negative things, so that knock on wood.
Yeah, it's great. It's so fun being here.
Yeah, and let me see here. I always forget to change this. Oh, hi, Ash and Dragon. Could you do the link for your pay? Oh, okay. Thank you for. And if you're on YouTube, Ash and Dragon, like it looks like you are, here's the link for PayPal. That's also in the description of every YouTube video that I have. So if you're wanting to make a tip or donation, I more than greatly appreciate it, because it helps keep these streams going, because it is something that's not free for me. I don't know how to use OBS or other things to kind of make this stuff work. But yeah, if you're in a position and feel so inclined, then I will always be incredibly grateful for any kind of tips. So that's where the tip is. And then again, it's also in the descriptions of the YouTube videos and the Facebook videos. So I'm going to take this off, so I'm not looking at this the entire time. So Emily, so when you started playing with other professional musicians in many different bands, I'm sure there's other musicians watching this that are curious about, how did you first get involved with your first professional band? And then was it a case of knowing, you know, the right people and getting recommended? Or how did this whole kind of process happen for you over time?
You know, it's hard to say exactly, because I think it happens differently for everybody. But for me, I was really young when I got involved with my first band, and that was fun. And so I toured with them for about 7 years, and I was on the first full band tour they ever did. So we were like playing very small venues and stuff. I got that job because my boyfriend at the time was playing with Jack. So like I was around them and they needed somebody, and I flew out and auditioned in New York. I still think a lot of music is like that, where you kind of build a name for yourself, where you like it's about knowing certain people and getting connected and being willing to do anything. Like, you know, that tour didn't look super like fancy. I was 22, but it didn't look super fancy at the time, because we were like in a van and trailer, and they're like, yeah, we can't really pay you right now, you know, that kind of thing. But then if you watch the history of fun, it grew to be something amazing. So yeah, I think it's about, I guess, just connections with people and like being willing to take chances on things, and I don't know, just opening yourself up to opportunities. Okay.
And like you were just saying, when you think back about the tour, you know, being in the 15 passenger vans and the trailers and that kind of thing, some people love it, some people don't like it, and it kind of actually forces them out of the touring business, because it'll separate you pretty quick if you're not really passionate about something. What were your recollections of that time? Is it something that you look back on and say, yeah, I really enjoyed that? Or is it kind of like, well, it was a means to an end? Or
no, it was so fun. I loved it so much. I still would love to do another tour like that. It's just, you get to know people so well, which I think is my favorite part about playing music, especially on stage, like you interacting with stage, but also just around on tour, you get to know people so well, which is nice. And you're really present for everything, because you have to be. You're like loading out after the show, and you know, you're like driving in the middle of the night and sharing hotel rooms with people. Like, that's really fun. I really, really liked it, and I'm happy that was part of my my journey. And now it's different. I'm a lot older, and I love the jobs that are a little more like comfortable. You know, I think that's something I value now, but I'm really happy that was in my past.
And that makes a lot of sense, because like you were just saying, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been waiting outside of a club to see the band either get there, or typically when they're leaving or they're off the stage, and yeah, they're loading their own gear back in, and they're just talking to the fans, and you can't really have a rock star attitude in that sense, because you're just like anybody else basically out there at that time.
I think that's important to know all the time too. You're not any better than anybody else ever. You know, it's like there's a lot of ego in a lot of different work places, but I think it's important to know that you're just part of a team. You know, we're all doing it together.
Yeah, it's a healthy attitude, and I think it's something that I've been really fortunate that as a fan and now as a media person, that I really can't think of anybody off the top of my head where it's like, wow, they were just awful. I can't think of anybody like that. You know, some were better than others, but they're still approachable at least.
definitely have some stories, but yeah, no, I that also has trained me and helped me learn like who I want to work for and you know, what values I associate with and like, you know, want to subject myself to.
Yeah, isn't it interesting when you get a chance to be around people that you learn what not to do?
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember the first time, it wasn't even that long ago that I said no to a job. For a long time, I felt like I had to accept everything. And I was, most of the time they turned out really well. But I remember the first time I said no to a job and I was like, this feels really weird. And I don't know if I should say no, like it's money, it's whatever. It wasn't the right job for me and I probably wouldn't have been the right person for them. But it opened up so many opportunities, you know, like it's just nice to have, you know, I said the thing about jumping on with fun and it being not a super fancy tour that may not be right for everybody. If you don't like that, you know, maybe you want something different and that's okay too. It's nice to be able to pick what, you know, you want to be part of.
Yeah, sure. And like you were saying, I think it comes down to there's too many good people to work with. I've had to do the same kind of thing of like I didn't want to. I wouldn't say burn a bridge, but I just didn't want to say no to too many things because like, well, they might be connected to something else. It connects them to something else. But then it's like, don't forget all these really good people that are already in front of me. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that fact because I'll start getting like, oh, what about this? And what about that? And I can schedule these people. And it's like, well, wait a minute. This person's been here since the beginning. They've always treated me well. I always love working with them or their artists or whoever. Make sure that that's the foundation. And the other things can kind of happen where I have time. Because sometimes I start flipping it around and start thinking, well, I want new stuff. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
I know. That's why I feel like it's really important to kind of reset every so often what you want and what your values are, because it's easy to be like tempted by certain things because that sounds fun and maybe that would be, but you know, it has to line up in your life correctly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big believer in balance. And I'm always striving for it, and it's never completely set. And I know that. And if I feel myself getting off keel, then it becomes like, okay, why? What's going on here? That am I doing too much of this? Maybe my personal life's suffering, or vice versa. Just been really fortunate that I got to a point where I can actually start thinking about that. Of like, yeah, don't take on too much here because this is already getting a little thin ice over here, and you don't want that. You know, this is something I value, so make sure they're all looking pretty good and not going to crash through and drown. So
I think that's so important. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So when you're obviously with Total Brutal during this time, and you had a chance to work on the music during the pandemic, and then like you mentioned, you were on this particular new single, work in a studio outside of your home. Was there anything beyond Total Brutal that you feel like you kind of picked up something new during this time?
During quarantine? Yes, I guess. Well, let me think about this. I think I mentioned earlier, but I feel like I've learned a lot about myself, which I maybe wouldn't have had the time or energy to do otherwise. So that's helpful. I love that process of learning kind of like who you are and then reevaluating exactly what we just talked about. But I also have always considered going back to school. So I took some online classes, which was really fun. Yeah, when I think we talked about it, but I need momentum in my life. Otherwise I kind of slow or whatever. But that in the beginning, I took 3 or 4 online classes and that was really awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, awesome.
Horizons, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's great. I talk about this all the time, and it's not just because I was a former teacher. Anytime you learn something new, that's always a good day in my book.
Yeah, and it affects music too. I think, especially with writing, it opens up your mind to different ideas, and it kind of gives you new pathways to explore.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, so what are some of the origins of the topics for your lyrics for Total Brutal songs?
Well, through learning about myself is mostly because of my lyrics. Like I still kind of write, and I don't really know what I'm writing about at the time. Like for lyrics, they've always kind of been a secondary thing to me. I'm not super great at them, I think, but I'm learning how to maybe channel some important things in my life into them. But yeah, I guess looking back, the last song I did was called Egypt, and it was definitely about nostalgia and kind of this idea about sometimes I have a tendency to look into the past and feel like, man, I missed that so much or something. But I can apply the same outlook to my future as well. And I think I'm trying to learn how to balance that more now. One more thing that I feel really strongly about and want to write more about is Feel like, I don't know if it's a lot of females, but it's definitely something in my life where I never wanted to like be too big or loud or bright or loud, I guess. Like, I don't know if I was ever given permission to do that or something, but I think it's an important part of my growth. So I've been trying to like be more loud, I guess, is the only thing I can say. Like, I just kind of speak more about what I believe in and like hold my place a little bit more, which I think is really important for a lot of young women to see in artists, and also just to like know that it's okay to do that. I'm still having to tell myself that every day. So I find that showing up in my lyrics a lot.
That's really interesting. Something I had talked about back on the Alice tour that I'd done back in May was that I told anyone that was watching these things that I was really intentional with the type of guests that I wanted to have on, and I wanted to have a wide spectrum of guests. If that was LGBTQ, if that was female, if that was Black, Indigenous people of color, if that was just everything I could think of. And for the most part, especially they have a really open-minded fan base, so there are people like right along with that. But every now and then there would be someone that was kind of didn't really care for that, and I'm like, well, that's up to you. I don't have to agree with that, and you don't have to agree with me. But as long as we're being respectful of that, then I'm okay. But if you start making personal attacks, then I have an issue with these things. But I've always been mindful, and I know you said you've looked through some of my stuff. That so like I had a music symposium with 3 female up and coming artists, and they're 15 and 19 and 23. They're
that's so cool.
They're very young. Yeah, I do everything I can as organically as I can, but at the same time, I'm also trying to make sure that if I say something, then it's that whole kind of walk the walk, talk to talk kind of thing, or the other way around, talk to talk, walk the walk.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that as often as I can with things. And I have a local friend here who started working in the film industry, and she made her first short. And I had this film director symposium, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to say you're the token female Asian filmmaker, but I do have an opportunity for you to meet some other directors from around the world. Would you like to come join us? Because you're more than welcome to. And she jumped all over it.
Yeah, I'm glad that the world's changing and there's a platform for these things now. It hasn't always been like that.
Right, exactly. And I've seen her struggle through the last few years in terms of trying to get where she wanted to with things, and some of the unfortunate stereotypes that were still there from the powers that be. So I'm like, no, if there's ever an opportunity that I have, I will give you the option. You can choose whether you want to be on that platform or not, but just making sure that those opportunities are there is kind of the first step, and seeing what people do with it. So that's interesting about when you're talking about the lyrics to Egypt, that about looking back at something, but then also trying to find the balance about looking to your future of what could be coming. So kind of begs the question, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Oh boy, you caught me at a funny time. It's hard to look at the future. Everything's so weird. Well, I'm looking forward to going back on tour because I really love traveling. I think that makes me really happy. As far as the project of Total Brutal, I started it with really no expectations. I was really, I think I told you before, I just really wanted to see if I could do it. And I'm like really happy that I'm doing that. It's really helping me in my personal life, but also I hope it's helping other people too, if they share the same, questions I have about life. But I really like making music. It's really fun. I haven't done that in years. And I hope that I just keep doing that. I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily want to be famous or whatever. I just really like the process of, it's cathartic for me. I really like the process of writing and putting it out in the videos. It's really fun to do the visual aspects too. I didn't know I'd like that, but I was forced to do it in quarantine because I couldn't really work with anybody. So I had to do a lot myself, and that was really fun.
Oh, interesting. So like the video for Egypt, that's something that you directed and did?
No, that was my friend Blaine. So a lot of it, that's the other thing. I really like working with people. I have a lot of really talented friends. So I like bringing people in where I can to kind of do what they do best. And Blaine is a jewelry maker from North Carolina, where I'm from. And I've known him for many, many years, but his art has always seemed like more than just jewelry to me. It seems like kind of living. Like he does these, promo pieces for his art where they're like kind of like shadows and stuff. And I thought that was so cool. So I sent him the song and asked if he'd be willing to put a music video together. And I'm so glad he said yes, he did. And I thought it turned out really cool.
Yeah, no, that it did turn out cool. And then also, like you were saying with learning the skill set to do video stuff on your own for other songs. I've heard the same thing from a lot of people. It's like, yeah, I don't know, I could collaborate with somebody, through sending internet files back and forth, or maybe I'll just try taking a stab at this and figure out I've got some time.
Yeah, I'm really limited in my abilities, but they're like the lyric videos I try to do myself because I feel like that's something I can get my head around, and that's really fun. And like just taking photos and stuff. I don't know, it's all new to me. I just kind of try it, and sometimes I'm not good at it, and I have to bring somebody in, and that's awesome too because I get to work with my friends.
Yeah, and there's a particular artist that we've talked many times about during this time about just trying something new, and it doesn't matter how small it is. If it's out of your comfort zone, if it's not, it's just like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And I kept agreeing with them, but then I kept saying, well, I'm a writer, I'm a photographer, I'm a musician. I got too many things I got to work on. Then I kind of realized again, I wasn't really walking the walk. So it became, what would put me out of my comfort zone artistically? And I thought, oh, immediately drawing or painting.
Yeah.
That's not something I do, but the stuff that you see in my background, that's actually stuff that I did.
I was going to ask in the beginning. That's so great. Those are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I like the red and white one a lot. That's so cool.
It's pour painting using cups, and I knew nothing. I didn't look at YouTube for tutorials or any of that kind of stuff. I just saw something about 10 years ago on TV, and this guy was doing these pouring paint onto a canvas using cups and stuff, and I'm kind of like, what is that? And it just stuck in my head that eventually maybe I would try that. But yeah, so I've done these 4. I actually have some more canvases sitting over there, so eventually I'm going to get to those. But yeah, it's just kind of like, why not? You can't really do it wrong. Just kind of go out there and see what happens.
No, and I think it's really easy to capture in the beginning stages of something, whether it's painting or music or whatever's new to you, like that freeness or something. Like creativity, I think, is such an important part of the balance of life, and especially when it's your job, it's hard to just be creative and not worry about how people are perceiving you or whatever. But when you're doing something new, you kind of have no expectations. Like you're not really worried somebody's going to be like, why are you doing it like that? Which I struggle with that a lot, like people pleasing. But for when I start a new project, I have none of that. And it feels so great for a very short amount of time.
That is a very valid point. I didn't even think about that. When you have a new endeavor that artistically, that's like, yeah, no one knows what to expect. So there is no expectation there from it.
You allow yourself that too. You're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to see.
Yeah, for me, it was like, well, let's make a mess and see what happens.
It's great. And it feels good to get your hands dirty. I love making messes like that. Not worrying about it.
I've learned to like it. I'm not OCD, but I'm kind of like picky about where things go. But I'm like, no, in this case, it's kind of freeing to do this. So, and I see Ash and Dragon saying to see the real artist and not just the onstage glamour is awesome. So, okay, yeah, I'm glad that you're getting a chance to see, what's behind the curtain or whatever you want to call it. And I think a lot of people they're just regular people. Obviously here talking with Emily, that we don't know each other. We've never met before or anything like that. We didn't do any kind of in-person interview in Seattle or something. And it's become something of like, yeah, she's working on music and she's talking about the ups and downs during quarantine, just like what I've experienced and everybody else out there has experienced, and the things that we're looking forward to coming back, and including live events, tours, and just being around people and feeling safe being around people. All those things. And there's levels of anxiety and good days, bad days, in between days. And
life, ups and downs.
Yeah, and in some ways, I feel like I am kind of in a really big boat with a lot of people that initially I never knew, but now we're still in the same big boat, but I know them pretty well. And we're actually we're not as different as maybe we thought we were.
I agree.
So one question I'm always asking guests, especially music guests, about, I love physical merchandise. I love, if it's vinyl, CDs, t-shirt, whatever, I like to support artists when I can. And do you have any plans for Total Brutal to put out anything physical?
I like that too. I always buy. I end up with so many T-shirts from bands that I like, just because it's like fun to have that and support. I really want to do that. I'm still just like discovering the music part of it. I'm discovering the business part of it too. And as much as I want to do that, I just don't know how yet. But I think my plans for Total Brutal, and we'll see as this develops over the year, is I'd like to put out an EP, and with that, I'll probably try to do some kind of like merch and maybe vinyl, because I think they're so cool looking and just nice to have, like you said, like that physical thing. So soon, I hope, but it's a learning curve for sure.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I hope that you get to a point where you put out an EP and I can physically have your music in my hand and I can put it on a player of some sort and that kind of thing. But Emily, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. It's awesome getting a chance to talk to you, and everybody out there. You can kind of see. You can go to totalbrutalmusic.com. I also know she's on Instagram. And I know anything else that you'd like to plug before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, I think April 9th, I have a new song coming out. I'll start seeing some stuff about that soon. And yeah, no, I'm just excited to be here. Thanks. This was really nice to talk to you.
It's nice talking to you, and everybody, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this down the road in the future, thank you for watching this down the road in the future. And yeah, Emily, I hope that you and your husband stay safe down there. And hopefully I get a chance to, well, not hopefully, I'll get a chance to hear your brand new music coming on April 9th.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Awesome. Have a good night down there.
Goodbye. Have fun.